Just when I thought the truth couldn't possibly get any uglier, the floor gave way completely. Maddie reached down, guiding Carter's hand to the slight, barely there curve of her lower stomach. She looked at him like she was presenting a crown jewel. But I don't have a ring. Carter, what are we going to do about our baby? Carter frowned, the silence stretching into something suffocating. Then, he uttered the most venomous words I had ever heard in my life. Your due date is right around Camilla's. When the time comes, I'll switch the babies. I'll give yours to her. And her baby? Maddie whispered. I'll drop it off at a fire station or an orphanage. I told you our child would be the sole heir to this empire. Maddie, I'm not letting anyone stand in his way. Carter said it with the casual dismissal of someone throwing out junk mail. His eyes darkened then, intensely serious. But Camilla can never know. I can't lose her. With that, he pulled Maddie flush against him again, his movements turning punishing and rapid. My heart felt like it was being beaten with a blunt instrument, the pain radiating outward until I was entirely numb. He was never the perfect gentleman I thought he was. He was just saving his passion for someone else. But how could he be this deeply evil? To throw away our own flesh and blood? Hot tears slid down my cheeks into the dark carpet. Instinctively, my hands moved to cover my stomach, shielding the 3-month-old life growing inside me. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the windows, the sickening noises finally stopped. Carter dressed himself, adjusting his cuffs before walking over to the sofa where I lay feigning sleep. He dropped to his knees, his touch impossibly gentle as he brushed the stray hairs from my forehead and wiped a dried tear from the corner of my eye. My sweet girl, he whispered softly. I'll love you forever, just like they did. Those hands. Those same hands that had just been all over another woman's body. A few minutes later, he led a trembling-legged Maddie out the front door. I dragged myself up from the sofa, my entire body shaking. The sorrow had evaporated, leaving behind a frost so absolute it burned. I pulled out my phone and dialed my best friend, Brooke, a corporate attorney. Brooke, draft the divorce papers. If this was Carter's definition of love, I was going to burn it to the ground, and him along with it. An hour later, I was sitting in a sterile, white hospital room. Doctor, I can't keep the baby. As the cold instruments did their work, my vision blurred with fresh tears. I had prayed for this child for 5 long years. I had begged the universe for a family with Carter. But now, I loved this baby too much to bring her into a world where her father would discard her like trash. When I opened my eyes again in the recovery room, the sky outside the window was exploding with brilliant, cascading fireworks. A young nurse walked in to check my vitals, her eyes glued to the window, sighing with dreamy envy. Can you believe that? The CEO of Carter Enterprises bought out the bay for his girlfriend. They've been going off all night. Rumor has it he even bought her a $100 million custom yacht to celebrate her pregnancy. Even the muted TV on the hospital wall was flashing the headline, Tech Billionaire Lights Up the City for Mystery Girlfriend. On the screen, grainy paparazzi footage showed Maddie leaning into Carter's chest on the deck of a yacht, smiling a sickly sweet, triumphant smile. We had been secretly married for 5 years to protect his corporate image. In all that time, he had never bought me a single extravagant gift. Once, years ago, I had gently hinted that I wanted to watch the New Year's fireworks together. He hadn't even looked up from his laptop. It's just burning money for 5 minutes of noise. Cam, what's the point? I'm not into all that performative romance. He wasn't allergic to romance. I just wasn't the woman he wanted to be romantic for. 2 days later, I buried my parents. That evening, Carter finally came home after a 2-day business trip. Cam, baby, I've been working the police chief non-stop these past 2 days, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. The guy who hit them finally confessed. He's locked up. Your parents can rest in peace now. A heavy, suffocating wave of designer perfume hit my nose. It was Maddie's signature scent. My body trembled violently, a physical rejection of his proximity. Swallowing the bile in my throat, I dodged his lips as they moved toward my neck. I don't feel well. The baby. Carter stiffened. He pulled back, a flicker of genuine panic crossing his features. Cam, did you see the news? The fireworks? I opened my mouth, struggling to form the words to confront him. Before I could, his phone buzzed. It was a custom ringtone, the one reserved just for Maddie. He flipped the screen face down with lightning speed, but not before I caught the contact name. My little trouble. The words stung my exhausted eyes. Carter, I just had a nightmare. Her voice whined through the speaker, breathless and needy. I'm so scared. Can you come over? Without a second of hesitation, his voice melted into liquid velvet. Take a deep breath. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to me, already grabbing his keys. Don't listen to the tabloids, Cam. Maddie was just having a breakdown over your parents' death. I took her out to distract her. She's like a little sister to me, you know that. What kind of brother fucks his sister on a mahogany table and gets her pregnant? And they were my parents. I was the one who had lost everything. You've been running yourself ragged with the funeral preparations. Get some sleep, he said, already halfway out the door. Maddie's having a panic attack. I need to go check on her. As he rushed out, his wallet slipped from his coat pocket, landing on the hardwood floor. I picked it up. Through blurry, bloodshot eyes, I saw the photo in the ID window. It used to be a picture of us on our college campus. Now, it was a Polaroid of him and Maddie, kissing against a sunset. I walked into the living room, took down our framed wedding photo, and methodically smashed the glass, taking a pair of shears to the canvas until it was confetti. I slipped off the wedding band I had worn for 5 years and dropped it into the coffee grounds in the trash can. Then, I went upstairs and started packing. Halfway through folding a sweater, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number. It was a photo. A man standing in a steamy bathroom, his perfectly sculpted torso bare. A woman's manicured hand was tracing the jagged, faded scar across his abdomen. It was the scar Carter got 5 years ago when he took a knife from me during a mugging. He had been covered in his own blood, gripping my hand with trembling fingers as we waited for the ambulance. I'll always protect you, Cam, he had whispered. The boy who had slain dragons for me had become the monster tearing me apart. I stood there like a ghost, letting the tears fall in silence, until the sudden shrill of my ringtone shattered the quiet. It was Maddie, I answered. Her voice was husky, languid, the unmistakable sound of a woman who had just been thoroughly satisfied. Did you ever actually really satisfy him, Cam? She purred. He took me 3 times today, and all it took was one phone call for him to drop you in the middle of the night and come running back for more. When I didn't answer, she laughed. It was a sharp, grating sound. Cat, got your tongue? Still crying over those old fossils? God, you should have seen it, Cam. The way the semi-truck just crushed them into ground meat. It was so messy. Pure, unadulterated hatred spiked through my veins, turning the blood to ice. 10 years ago, my parents found her freezing by the side of a highway, covered in infections, half dead. They took her in. They raised her. 5 years ago, they even paid out of pocket for her to study abroad. But when she came back last year, everything shifted. Jewelry went missing. When my parents caught her stealing and gently reprimanded her, she threw a hysterical fit, screaming that they always treated her like an outsider, and threatened to slit her wrists. Strange men started sneaking out of her bedroom window. When my parents tried to talk to her about respecting herself and offered to set her up with decent, hard-working guys, she went to the country club and told everyone they were trying to sell her off to old men for money. At first, Carter thought she was out of line too. But then, one night after he came back from a VIP club downtown, his tune changed. I think you guys have Maddie all wrong. She's not a bad kid. She's working bottle service to pay for her masters. Some trust fund kid offered her 10 grand to sleep with him, and she dumped a bottle of champagne over his head. I remember the faint, intrigued smile playing on Carter's lips when he told me the kids got fired. Later, when my parents realized Maddie was beyond saving and threatened to cut her out of the will, she poisoned our elderly golden retriever. When my father, blind with grief and rage, finally raised a hand to discipline her, Carter had